Okay, if Coach is here, I can start. That's it. Okay, good evening, everyone. It is another sold-out crowd on Zoom tonight. We welcome everyone that has joined us, and we are zooming into the Parsha once again. And this week we have PARSHAS EMOR. And of course, Ba'ashkacha, we find in this week's Parsha begins to speak to us about the great mitzvah called Sfiras HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. And the Torah tells us, "Usfartem lechem mimacharas haShabbos," you must count lechem for yourselves from the day after Shabbos, which means the day after Pesach. V'yom aviyachem ezoyim atanufa sheva shabbosais temimos tiyanu. You have to count 7 complete weeks. And this is the great mitzvah of which Klal Yisrael is involved in right now, where we are counting every single day, from the second day of Pesach until the night before Shavuos. We're going to count 7 Shavuos, Temimos, 7 complete weeks, till we arrive at the number 49. And the number 50, of course, is the Yom Tov of Shavuos, of the giving of the Torah itself. So in the Sefer HaChinuch, which is the beautiful sefer that was written by a father to his son for his bar mitzvah, going back perhaps maybe 700-800 years, where he goes through all of the mitzvahs in the Torah and he explains the sharashim, he explains the roots and the meaning behind those mitzvahs. He speaks over here about the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, counting the Omer, counting up towards Shavuos. And really one of the main questions that he's coming to address is the following. If you watch NASA launch their rockets, or Musk is going to launch some new mission to Jupiter or Mars, so when they are getting ready to count for the rocket ship to take off, they're always counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7. They go down, they get to 0 until it's blast off. When it comes to the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, we never count down. It's not that we're counting 49, 48, 47, 46, and we get to 0, blast off. It's counting up every single night. We're going forward. We're always counting up. And the Sefer HaChinuch comes to address this question of why is it that when a Jew is preparing themselves for something, when our children my kids are already on the calendar, they're already counting down the days of school that are left. The truth is they've been counting down the days of school since the first day of school already. So they're counting down, and they already know there's 33 days and 22 minutes and 3 seconds left of school. They count down, they start marking off every single day on the calendar. However, when it comes to the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, it's not a counting that is down. It is a counting that is going up every day. Today is the first day, and the second day, third day. We get to day 49. And after 49, we culminate with the 50th day, which is going to be Shavuos. What are we counting up for? Why are we not counting down and blasting off on the last day of Shavuos? So the Sefer HaChinuch writes, Mishar Sheh Mitzvah. The roots of this mitzvah, he says, Tzara Poshit, it's very simple to understand. The main essence of the Jewish people, our purpose of why we came into this world, and that which we occupy the majority of our time with, is nothing less and nothing else besides Torah. That's the main thing. And because of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch created the heavens, the earth, and the Jewish people. Because that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants there to be a place in which the Torah is going to be able to be kept. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that there will be a nation that is going to be the receivers of the Torah. That's why everything in this world was created. The world was brought to its fruition. And Klal Yisrael is the nation that becomes the bearers, the emissaries of the Torah. Kamoshe Kasav, like it says in the Torah, in the verse in the Navi, if I would not have created the heavens and the earth. And the pasuk goes on to say over there, I never would have made the world do exactly the way that it is. Why, says the Torah, says the Navi, the prophet? Because that since that there's going to be something called Torah, that's why I created heavens and earth the way that they are. And you should know, says the Sefer Chinuch, that this is the main reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us and brought us into redemption from Mitzrayim, from our struggles in the land of Egypt as the slaves. What was the purpose of us going free? Did HaKadosh Baruch Hu just want to end our miserable, wretched existence as slaves to the Egyptian people? Did he want to give us freedom so that we could say goodbye to our enemies and run off into the wilderness and will no longer be trapped by the confines of the Egyptian society, the ideologies, and their people? Or perhaps there was a much deeper reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm going to redeem you, because you have a purpose. You have a mission in this world. And the reason that I removed you from the land of Egypt is because you must fulfill the mission of the Am HaNivchar, of the chosen nation. What is that? Says the Sefer HaChinuch, that the whole Siba, the cause, the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us from Egypt, Kedei sheyikablu haTorah b'Sinai, in order that we should accept the Torah upon ourselves at Mount Sinai, and that we should uphold and keep the Torah. It's not enough just that we stood there and we received it, that we were the only nation that was courageous enough to say, Nasiv and Ishmael we will do, and then we will figure out everything that is said inside of there. But rather, once that you accept it upon yourself, it has to be v'yikamu, that we must keep it and uphold it and cherish it and live it the way that Hashem wants us to. Like Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, you know why I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim? And he quotes a long pasuk, but at the end of the verse it says, because Tavdun es Elokim al har hazeh, in order that the Jewish people should serve Elokim on this mountain over here. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu is walking through the wilderness. He's shepherding the sheep of his father-in-law Yisro, and he comes to the burning bush, which was on Har Sinai. And there on Har Sinai, he has his first revelation with Hashem. And Hashem tells him, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to go into Mitzrayim. You're going to redeem the Jewish people. And you're going to bring them into the Geula, to the redemption. And the purpose of all that I'm going to do, the miracles, the signs, the wonders, the miraculous events that will transpire is all so Tavdun es Elokim al har hazeh, that they should serve me on this mountain right here. And how do we serve them? We serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in one way. You cannot serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with philosophical ideas. You cannot serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your own introspective take on the world. You cannot serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a nice book of self-help and religion that comes from some variant source. The only way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on that mountain is when we are receiving and we are embracing and we are being Mekayim, we are keeping the Torah. That is the service of Hashem. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, Hoitziacha Isa miMitzrayim, Hashem removed us from Egypt. The fact that he took us out of Egypt should be a sign. Shetavdun es Elokim al har hazeh, that Hashem wants us to serve him on this mountain. Kloimar, shetikablu haTorah, you must come to this mountain, Har Sinai, receive the Torah. She'ikar hagadol, which is the main point. Should be shvilzehem nigalim. That's why Hashem redeemed us. V'tachlis hatoiv shalahem, and it is the purpose of all of the good which HaKadosh Baruch Hu did on our behalf. So the Sefer HaChinuch is revealing to us. Perhaps we realize this already, but he's revealing and he's spelling out clearly that the only reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us and rescued us from the clutches of the Egyptians is because He wanted us to stand by Har Sinai and receive the Holy Torah directly from him. The inyan gadol hulem, it was a great inyan, a great matter for the Jewish people. Yoisem min acherus me'avdus. Very important words over here in the Sefer Chinuch. Greater than the freedom which came after the avdus, after the slavery, greater than the fact that we were let free from Mitzrayim, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu intended to bring us to Har Sinai and give us the revelation of the Torah, because therein lies, as we know, the greatest freedom, the greatest elevation, the greatest joy that a Jew is going to have. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had a very great intention when he took us out of Mitzrayim, and that was that we should be able to be free to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on that mountain, which is symbolic of the Torah, and that is the way we're going to become the Am HaNivchar, the chosen nation. Ulchein yaseh Hashem laMoshe ois tzeisa me'avdus lekabbalas haTorah ki hatipol ois oisin ois la'olam al ikar. And this great sign was, you are here, Moshe, on this mountain. I'm revealing myself to you for the first time on Har Sinai. Let this be a sign to you that here is the place where you are going to bring the nation. When you leave Egypt, it's not just to go into freedom. It's not just to get away from your enemies and your oppressors. I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim to bring you to a vast wilderness. And in that wilderness will be Har Sinai, and Har Sinai you'll receive the Torah. And for that, Klal Yisrael is being saved right now. And because of that, says the Sefer HaChinuch, Ki kol ikaron shel Yisrael, this is the main part of all of Klal Yisrael. And because that Hashem wanted us to receive the Torah, that's why he redeemed us. And he raised us to all the greatness. Remember, the Jewish people, they were on the 49th level of impurity when they left Egypt. And Hashem brought us up one day after another, one level after another, until we were standing by Har Sinai on the 49th level of Kedusha, of holiness. All of the greatness, all of the help that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us was for one reason, and that was that we should receive Hashem's Torah. Nitztavinu limnais mimacheres Yom Tov shel Pesach, and therefore we are commanded to count from the second day of Pesach ad yoim nesilas HaTorah, until the day that the Torah was given. For what reason? Why are we counting? Why is the counting so important? We don't count before Yom Kippur. We don't count before Sukkot. Every day before Sukkot, we're counting. We can't wait till we sit in the Sukkah. Every day before Rosh Hashanah, we're counting. We cannot wait until Rosh Hashanah comes and we're going to blow the shofar. We don't count before Hanukkah. Every day I'm so excited. In 20 days or 30 days, I'm going to be able to light the menorah for the first time. How come suddenly by this one Yom Tov that we have called Shavuos is the preparation for the Yom Tov? You must usfartem lechem, you must count for yourselves every single day. What are we counting for? Says the Sefer HaChinuch, you know why we're counting? Laharois benafshenu, to show out into our own nefesh, to our soul. Hachefetz hagadol el hayoim hanichbad v'hanichsav lelibenu, to show the excitement to ourselves. We're not demonstrating to anybody else. We are showing and we are inspiring and we are elevating ourselves, that we have an uncontrollable excitement for the great and the glorious and the desired day which is coming upon us. Ke'evid yishav tzel, like a slave who is out there in the fields working hard all day long. What's he waiting for at the end of the day? He's waiting to be able to go into the shade, to escape from the sun and the elements of the fields. That servant, that slave is waiting every single moment. When is this avodah, when is this hard work going to be over? When am I going to go free? When will I stop being part of my master's plans to work me to the bone? V'kol chetzai, the counting itself shows to the one that is counting that my whole yishai, my whole desire, v'kol chetzai, my whole will, la'agia el azman hahu, is to get to this very precious time. The reason that we are counting, as a slave will count in the field, wondering when is the time going to stop. I think they just had in France, if I'm not mistaken, they had about 40 people that went down, 40 people that went down into a cave under the ground. They were cut off from society for, I believe, 40 days. They did an experiment down there to see how they would deal with being cut off from the world. Could you imagine? No Netflix for 40 days. How could a person survive in the world today? No cars, no Wi-Fi, no internet. How are they going to survive? No light of day, no fresh air, no going to the store if you're hungry, no ordering something on Amazon, having it delivered to your front door in 6 hours and 43 minutes or less if you order it right now. So they did this whole experiment, and the people there, when they first got there, they were looking forward and waiting for the day in which they would be released. But at a certain point, because that they were cut off from reality, and they were in the trenches of the darkness of those cavernous caves over there, there was no light. They lost total track of time. And when they were finally redeemed, so to speak, and they were told that your time has come in this cave, so they said, it's 40 days already? The closest estimation that anybody had to how many days they were there was 30 days. They lost track altogether. And the truth is that when they came out of the cave, I think without exception, all of them said it was so pleasant to be inside of that cave, to be cut off from this Meshuggah Welt, this crazy world that we are a part of. They wish that they could have stayed down there for another 10, 30, 40 days and be able to experience the pleasures of being separated from this wild society. The Eved who's in the field doesn't ever lose track of time. He is counting every single day. Another day, another day, another day. I cannot wait until the Shibud, till the slavery is over. Klal Yisrael went through Mitzrayim. They went through the hardships of Gullus, of the exile. They went through difficulties that we can never imagine. And now they're holding by the midbar, by the wilderness. They came through the splitting of the sea, and they're counting up every day. They cannot wait. They're looking forward to that glorious moment when they will come to Tavdin Elokim al Har, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on this mountain. And therefore, as they are going through the wilderness, and they have their eyes, their sight on the goal, which is Har Sinai and Shavuos, every day counts. Every day matters. Every day is another day to elevate themselves, to be worthy of it. Like the Sefer Chinuch writes, that's why we're counting. Another day passed, another day passed. And we're not saying we have so many days left. It's another day has passed, and we're getting closer, one step. It shows the great desire that we have to achieve and reach that precious time. Like he says. Says the Sefer Achinuch, we're counting up. We're counting up because it shows how much we desire to get to that moment. You don't lose track of the days. You don't go down, you're going up, because Torah is up, as we say in the Gemara elsewhere. Mailin b'kodesh ve'ein moridin, we always go up. In the world of Kedusha, in the world of holiness, ein moridin, we never go down. We're always moving up. Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, and they had to move up. It was not easy. You think it's easy to be a slave nation? It's easy to leave all of your life behind, to look around, as we pointed out in previous shiurim and other days, where they lost 80% of all of the Jews, didn't make it out of Egypt. That means the 20% that escaped and that were rescued and saved in the Geula and the redemption, 20% was alive. That means every single person who left Egypt certainly lost loved ones in the plague of darkness. You think that it was easy to be moving through the wilderness, going to where they know they're heading? It wasn't easy. But Klal Yisrael made a commitment. And that commitment was the reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us from Mitzrayim, is in order that we should be zeicher to stand by our Sinai and receive the Torah. And that's an excitement for us because we know that's the purpose of creation. And that's what Hashem has been waiting for all these years. And we made it out alive. And we're surrounded by the clouds of glory. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is protecting us on all sides. And we will get there. And so with great enthusiasm and great ruts and great desire, Klal Yisrael counted up every single day until we come to Shavuos. And on that day, we stood by the foot of the mountain and we said, Na'aseh v'nishma, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewarded us. And he gave us the Torah, which would mean, it would seem very simple. Had we not gone through the counting of the Sfiras HaOmer, had we not shown HaKadosh Baruch Hu the anticipation, the excitement, the recognition that the Torah itself is the greatest gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu give to us, then we would not have merited to stand by Har Sinai and receive the Torah upon ourselves. Which means that as we are getting ready for Shavuos, and already my wife asked me today, please make sure that you get enough ingredients to make cheesecake tomorrow when you go shopping, because I have to get ready for Shavuos. The preparation for Shavuos is not which recipe cheesecake are you going to make this year. The preparation for Shavuos is not what kind of food are we going to eat at 2 o'clock in the morning to keep our eyes open, because I don't have toothpicks to keep my eyelids up. The preparation for Shavuos is not, should I buy myself a new fancy suit or a tie because it's Yom Tov, I have to look good. The preparation for Shavuos, the Sefer HaChinuch is saying over here, is that when you learn to anticipate with great excitement and a fervor, and every day you're counting up and up and up because you cannot wait any longer till finally there's going to be the spiritual freedom that the Jewish people desire when the Torah was given our Sinai. Then when you come to the night of Shavuos, whether they have the kind of coffee you like or they don't have the kind of coffee, whether he bought the ice cream that you enjoy eating at 3 o'clock in the morning or it's one of those flavors that you'd rather do without, whether or not the meal at night was good, it was milchigs, it was fleischigs, you're not sure which one you should have had, doesn't matter. What matters is that up until this point, a Jew has been preparing himself to receive the Torah. In order to receive the Torah, we must realize and recognize that we cannot live without the Torah, how precious the Torah is, how much we need the Torah, and the excitement that we are the nation that has been given the gift and the reward and the treasure of the Torah. One of my favorite Torah maisim is a ma'aseh that I heard from the son of the person himself. One of the great poskim of our generation is a man by the name of Usher Weiss. He has a very choshev, very prominent kollel in Eretz Yisrael. He has authored many sfar, many books in some of the most intricate areas of halacha, of Jewish law. And he is a very profound thinker, extremely articulate. He grew up in America, and he articulates his thoughts in English in a masterful way. He was here in America, maybe it was when I heard him speak, must be about 7 years ago. And his father had just passed away a few months before that. And he got up to speak at a gathering of an organization that was raising money for yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael and the koilos in Eretz Yisrael. And he was speaking about the greatness and the glory of Torah. And he said over the following, he said his father was a disciple of the Klausenberger Rebbe. How did he become a disciple of the Klausenberger Rebbe? Because he was in Auschwitz together with the Rebbe. And he said after the war was over, So his father, against really all odds, ended up marrying a woman that was there in the DP camps. The Rebbe was there, Masada Kedushin married them off. And the Rebbe gave them brachas and brachas that they should have beautiful, beautiful children that would be luminaries of Torah in their own right. And he said, everybody thinks that the reason that the brachas that the Rebbe gave him and the reason that they worked was because of the following story. When the war was over and the Nazis ran away and the Allied forces came in, so there were hundreds of corpses lying around Auschwitz that had not had Jewish burial. And the Klausenberger Rebbe came to my father, he said, and he told him, we have a great mitzvah of kvura, of burial for the Jewish bodies here. Now that the Nazis are gone, we can lay them to rest properly. I want you to get the men together, and with whatever energy and muscles and strength you have left, begin digging graves. We're going to bury all of the bodies that are here. And when his father arranged for the crew, and the US Army had moved in already, and they began digging grave after grave and burying one after the other of these poor souls who didn't survive. After every last body was buried, the Klausenberger Rebbe came to his father and he said, I give you a bracha that you should get married, you should restart your life, and that your children should grow to be Gedolei Torah, science of Torah in this world. And Rav Asher Weiss, in great humility, said, I don't know about myself, but I can tell you that my brothers, they are all great Torah scholars in their own right. And Rav Asher Weiss said, and everybody thinks that story is the reason why my father merited to have so much success in his spiritual endeavors after the war. He said, but that's not the real story. I'll tell you the story that I heard from my father. And this is the reason why my father merited to have so much bracha in Torah in his life and for his family. When he was taken into Auschwitz, he was in bunk 32. And he found out that the Klausenberger Rebbe was in bunk 33. And he wanted nothing more than to be together with the Klausenberger Rebbe, to bask in the greatness of this tzaddik, to learn Torah with him and from him, to get the chizuk, the inspiration that he needed. But you couldn't just switch from one bunk to the other. You'll get killed if you disappear. So he devised a plan. And the plan was the following. In his bunk, there was a man by the name of Greenbaum. And he said to him, listen, your son is there, isn't he, in bunk 33? And the man said, yes. He said, would you like to spend the rest of Auschwitz together with your son? He said, of course I would, but how am I going to get there? He said, I have a plan. He said, I will run there in the middle of the night when the Nazis are not watching. I will find your son and I will tell him, run now for your life and go into the bunk 32. From now on, your last name is going to be Weiss and my last name is going to be Greenbaum. And I will occupy a place in bunk 33 and he will now occupy my empty space in bunk 32. So he said to this father of the son in the other bunk, are you willing for me to put your son through such a perilous act? And the father said, if you see that the coast is clear, please, because I would love to be with my son. And so sure enough, in the middle of the night, Rav Asher Weiss's father looked around, he saw no Nazi guards, and he ran for his life into bunk 33. And he looked around and he found the Greenbaum boy. And he said, quickly, 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 the Nazis aren't watching. Your father is waiting for you in the bunk next door. You going there, from now on, you will be me and I will be you. Go! And the boy gets up and he runs for his life and he makes it there safely. And Rav Asher Weiss looks around and he finds the Klausenberger Rebbe. And he walks over to the Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, he said, I just risked my life to be here in the bunk with you. And he said, I have a question for you about the Gemara that I was learning before I was taken onto the cattle cars and brought to Auschwitz. And the Rebbe looks at this young man and he says, here in Auschwitz, you're learning Torah. He says, do you see where we are? We are in Gehenna. We are in hell over here. What are you doing? He said, just try to keep yourself alive. And he says, no, Rebbe, you don't understand. I just risked my life that I should be here next to you. And I came in because you're the only one that can answer my questions. Please, I beg of you. I came in to learn Torah from you. I have a problem on a Gemara that I was learning. You're the only one that can answer my question. And the Rebbe was so astounded by this young man. He said, if that's what you're thinking about and that's what's on your mind, then Bini, my child, ask away whatever you want. And so the boy asked a complicated question from one Gemara and another Gemara and another Gemara and a Rashi and a Taisus and a Ritva. And he and the Rebbe sat through the night and they went through back and forth to come to what the pshat was. And the rest of the time in Auschwitz, the father of Usher Weiss, who was a young man at the time, he stayed by the side of the Rebbe and he learned with him. And they spoke in Torah. And he protected the Rebbe whenever it was needed and necessary. And they survived together. Said Rav Usher Weiss, my father's secret of success, of survival, of longevity, of the illustrious family that he was zeicher, that he merited to raise, was this story. If you are meiser nefesh for Torah, you are sacrificing yourself, risking your life for the Torah Kedosha, even there in the annals of Auschwitz, then of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reward you with the Torah as well. Tomorrow night, Be'ez Hashem, is the much anticipated day called Lag BaOmer. It's the 33rd day in the Sfiras HaOmer that we are counting. Remember, we're counting up every single day, waiting and waiting till the glorious day when the Torah will be given at Har Sinai for Shavuos. And tomorrow is a kind of smack in the middle, day number 33. It is the Hilula, the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It is the Yortzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, as we know, was one of the main disciples of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, part of the celebration. But the other part of the celebration is that there's a man who lived in this world. He was more of a Malach Hashem, of an angel, than he was a human being. And his name was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He is the father of the Zohar. He brought Kabbalah, mysticism. He revealed it here in this world. And he was one of the great leaders of all the generations of Torah that we have. We are entranced that anybody's going to watch the live stream tomorrow night from Meron, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried in the land of Israel. You will see there are bonfires upon bonfires. What does all of this fire have to do with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? So many we say it's the fires of Torah. It's the fires of the mystical teachings, which are fiery coals of wisdom, of insight, of hidden secrets of the Torah. But perhaps I was thinking that there is a Gemara which brings another correlation between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and fire. And maybe this is something we have to think about tomorrow night as we are there reveling in the celebration of Lag BaOmer. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Daf Lamed Gimel, no coincidence, of course, Lamed Gimel Lag BaOmer, tells us the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And the Gemara says, the Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. One day it happened that Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon were sitting around, and they were schmoozing, they were talking. V'yosef Yehuda ben Gerim gabayhu, and there was a man by the name of Yehuda ben Gerim who was sitting with them. Pasach Rabbi Yehuda v'Omar, Rabbi Yehuda opened up and he said over the following: Kamenoim Maseim Shal Umazu. How admirable are the deeds of the Romans. Look how nice the Romans are. Look at everything that they do over here in Eretz Yisrael. Tiknu Shvakim, they make marketplaces. Tiknu Gesharim, they make bridges. And Tiknu Merchatzais, they make bathhouses for people to go and use. They're not such bad people, he said. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Shasak, when Rabbi Yossi heard these praises for the Romans, the wicked Romans, he was quiet, he didn't say a word. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Nana Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai v'Omar, and he said, Kol ma shetiknu lo tiknu letzarech atzman. You think the Romans are such nice people? They're making marketplaces and roads and bridges. What, for us? You think they're doing it for us? Are you kidding? Everything they did for themselves. Tiknu shvakim la'ishim and zaynais. They made marketplaces in order to have a place to keep their harlots. Tiknu merchatzais, says the Gemara. They made bathhouses to beautify their bodies. And gesharim, and they made bridges, litom and meches, so they could go and collect taxes from the Jews. You think the Romans are such great people? Everything they do is selfishly motivated for their own good. So the Gemara explains over here that Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim, who was sitting there listening, he went after this conversation and he told it over, maybe to his students, maybe to somebody else. He was not malicious in what he said. However, the Chavetz Chaim learns out from here that even if you're not malicious, but to tell something that can be construed as negative information, you're not allowed to say in the laws of Lashon Hara. What ended up happening? So the Roman government found out that the rabbis were sitting around talking about them, and they said over the following: Yehuda she'ilah. Yehuda said the Romans were so great, and he elevated our status. So Yis'ala, he's going to be elevated. He'll be made great as well. And so the Romans would give him the honor of always speaking first whenever there were public discourses. Yosi Sheshasak, Yosi, who was quiet over here when he heard these disparaging words. Yigla Litzipor, he's going to have to go into Gullus, into exile, be sent out of town. And Shimon, Shegina, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who put down the Romans and said, no, they did everything for themselves, they're selfish. Yahareg, he is going to be killed. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai now is in big trouble because the Roman army and the government is hot on his trail, and they're trying to come and kill him. So the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Shimon took his son Rabbi Lazar, and they went into the Beis Midrash and they hid themselves there. His wife would bring them food every day that they should be able to survive, and they sat and they learned Torah while the Romans were busy searching for them. At a certain point, when the search intensified, and the rumors on the street were that they were sending out even more armed guards and more detectives to find Rabbi Shimon, he said to his son Rabbi Lazar, it's not safe for us to be here anymore. We have to escape. We have to get out of here. And so what happened? Ozla, Tasha, Marasa, they went and they hid themselves in a cave. No food to eat, no water to drink. How are they going to survive? Israchish Nisa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a miracle for Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Lazar. Ibare luhu charuva, a carob tree grew on the spot. Ve'ena demaya, and a spring of water suddenly came out of nowhere and gave them nourishing water. The carob tree, as we know, takes 70 years to bear fruit. That was the miracle, that in an instant the tree came and gave them fruit to eat. And water was not there by that cave. Hashem brought them a spring that they will be able to survive. Every day they would shed their clothing because they only had one pair of clothes. They didn't know how long they have to be there in the cave. They didn't want to wear them out. So they would sit up to their necks in dirt to cover their bodies so that they would be tznius, they would be modest. And then Be'ida, and they would learn Kule Yoim Megarsi all day long. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar, his son, would learn Torah. That's all they were doing, all day. Be'ida and Saluye, when it was time to daven, Lavshu Michasu Matsalu, they would put their clothing on and they would daven. And then they would take their clothing off once again. The Gemara tells us it went on like this in the cave for 12 long years. 12 years, and it's brought down in mystical sources that in those 12 years, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai brought the Kabbalah, brought the Zohar down to this world, and he and his son were studying the greatest secrets of civilization, of creation, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Klal Yisrael, of the meaning of life. And for 12 long years, they sat up to their necks in dirt all day long, learning and learning and learning. All they ate were chruvim, were calves, and drank some water. They were completely cut off from the physical world. Says the Gemara, one day, Eliyahu Navi came, and he stood by the mouth, the opening of the cave. Omar, and he said, Man loide lebar Yochai demis Kisar. Who's going to let Rav Shimon Bar Yochai know that the Caesar has died? Ubantu gzerase, and therefore the gezer, the decree that he had made against you, that he's going to try to get you and kill you, it has been batul, it's nullified. Meaning, Rav Shimon, it is safe for you and your son to exit the cave. Chazu inshi. So they came back to civilization, and they walk out of the cave. Imagine, they have this very big shock to the system. A boy goes to yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael for a year, leaves America, but it used to work much better because this is in the ancient days where there were no cell phones. A boy would leave America, and he left it behind. He went to Israel, spoke to family, parents, friends, barely, because the phones just we didn't have phones all the time. And you sat in the old city, or you sat somewhere in Yerushalayim, and you lived a life of aestheticism to a great extent. The luxuries and comforts were nothing like we had here in America. We slept on thin mattresses. We didn't have air conditioning. Food was good, but it wasn't what we had in the plenty in America. We didn't have extra money to go and do this and go here and go there. Entertainment was nil. And 1 year you go and you're living like that. And you're elevating yourself in Kedusha every single day. Wow. Just going to the airport in Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv is already a shock to the system of that young man. But then to come back to America and see what's going on the streets over here, I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago, it's nothing like it was today. It looked like Meir Sharim 25 years ago in Los Angeles. Now, it's not what it looks like. But when we would come back from yeshiva, it was too shocking to the system. We just had to go into our rooms and just vegetate for a day or two just to acclimate ourselves to the situation that we were in. So Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and his son emerged from the cave after 12 years of that lifestyle. Dirt up to the necks, learning the deepest secrets of the Torah, only putting on clothing to daven, and only eating calves and drinking water every day. Could you imagine the shock to the system when they came back to this world? Says the Gemara, Chazu Inshe. They saw people, the Karchi Vizari, they were plowing and planting in the fields. Not a bad thing. A person is plowing and he's making vegetation, so he should be able to eat, make a livelihood, feed the world. Amar Rabbi Shimon said, these people are leaving the eternal world of Torah and spirituality, and they're pursuing and occupying themselves in this frivolous, transitory world. Anywhere that Rabbi Shimon and his son, Rabbi Elazar, put their eyes, wherever they looked, whoever they looked at, miyad nisraf, they burned them up. And the people died on the spot from the burning fires of Kedusha that were shooting out of the eyes of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son. not such a welcoming home for Reb Shimon and his son when they end up coming back to the world. Immediately, it's Sasa Baskol v'Amalem. A Baskol rings out and it says, "Lahachi v'lomi yitzasem." You spent 12 years in the cave learning Torah to come and destroy my world? Go back inside that cave and figure out how to process the Torah in a way that when you come back into the world, you will no longer destroy my world, rather, you will embrace my world and you will see the goodness that is there. So they went back into the cave for another year. And at the end of the year, once again, a Baskol rang out and said, leave the cave. You've done your job. And they come back from the cave, and the Gemara goes on and explains that wherever Rabbi Lazar would look, his eyes were shooting fireballs, and he would kill people. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had already understood the message of the Torah, and he would heal the people, and he would bring them back to life. And as they're walking, says the Gemara, it was Friday afternoon, and the sun was going down. They saw an old man. And he was holding 2 bundles of myrtles in his hand. And he was running. The sun is coming down. He's running. So Reb Shimon, they said, Hani la malach, why do you have these bundles of myrtles in your hand? So he said, because I'm lechavet Shabbos, I'm coming to honor the Shabbos. So they said, well, you're coming to honor the Shabbos. One would have been enough. So he said, no, it says, Shamor v'zachor. You have to guard and remember the Shabbos. So I have 2, one for each element of keeping of the Shabbos. When Rabbi Shimon heard these, he said, Amalei lebarei, he said to his son, Chazei kamo chavivim mitzvahs al Yisrael. Look how beloved the mitzvahs are to Klal Yisrael. Yosef Dadaihu, at that moment their minds were appeased and they realized that there are people in this world that are doing good things. We're not going to burden up anymore. When Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were in the cave, they were entrenched in the world of mysticism, of Torah, of the deepest secrets that you can imagine. There was no human beings besides the 2 of them. And therefore Torah existed only for the Father and the Son, only with the Ribbono Shel Olam. When they emerged from the cave and they saw human beings again, and in their eyes it looked like these human beings were doing something wild and crazy, wasting your time plowing the fields, wasting your time standing in line at the store, wasting your time WhatsApping and seeing, how could it be such a thing, said Rabbi Shimon. And therefore his kedusha that was inside of him could not contain itself, and he literally burned people up. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, that's not what Torah is for. It's true that Torah is an exclusive group, but it is not a group that excludes other people. It's true that there will be the people that will be able to live a life of aestheticism, a life of kedusha, a life of tahara, a life where they're just learning day and night. That's true. But it does not diminish the abilities and the efforts and the value of the life of another Jew. And the Torah is for every single one of us, each one on our own level. And just as you, Rabbi Shimon, and your son were in the cave learning the deepest levels of Torah, and I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I appreciate you for that. You should know I appreciate the farmer, and I appreciate the old man running on Friday afternoon, and I appreciate the businessman and the plumber and the school teacher, and I appreciate the gabbai in the shul. I appreciate them all, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in order for the Torah to be meaningful, in order for all of your learning to mean anything, you must learn to be inclusive of all of Klal Yisrael. And so they went back into the cave for another year. And in that cave, they processed and they refined and they thought to themselves, what is the meaning of Torah? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from us? Tavdun Elokim ala har hazeh. Go serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on that mountain. But the service on the mountain was not just Moshe Rabbeinu, That which we served, that Kodesh Baruch Hu on the mountain, was, as Chazal tell us, Be'ish echad u'belev echad, one man, one heart, embracing the Torah together. Naaseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. It's not just mine, it's all of our Torah. And until a person appreciates and values every single Jew and allows them to see the beauty that is inside of them and their individual connection with Torah and mitzvahs, then you're missing the point of what the Torah itself is really all about. Rabbi Shimon came back out of the cave after 12 months. And his son, who was who was younger and less mature in this area, still was burning with fire. But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's glance, the Gemara says that when he came out of the cave, he was Maseh Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon was able to heal the wounded. He was able to heal those that took the wrath of his son. He was able to heal those and bring back those that had been burned and incinerated from the glance of Rabbi Elazar. The fires that we dance around on the night of Lag BaOmer, the fires that will fill. Once I was in Eretz Yisrael during this time of the year, and I was leaving on Lag BaOmer night. And our flight was, I don't remember exactly, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. And as we were flying over the land of Eretz Yisrael, you could see bonfires everywhere that you looked across the land. It was everywhere, still burning till 1 o'clock in the morning. Those fires are to remind us, yes, there are fires of Torah that are inside of us, but everybody has fires of Torah inside of them. And instead of excluding others because they're not like us, instead of burning them up with our glance because they're not like us, we have to revel in the warmth that we have for ourselves, and we have to appreciate the sparks of holiness and Kedusha that are inside of the rest of Klal Yisrael. And so the celebration of Lag BaOmer is not just the Hilula, the Yortzeit, the memorial commemorating the death of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but rather commemorates this story which Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught us. And that is, Torah is inclusive. It is not really exclusive. The Torah is for all of Klal Yisrael, not just the rare few who live their life day and night in the cave, up to the neck in dirt, only drinking water and eating carobs. Rather, the Torah is for the plumber, and it's for the road worker, and it's for the teacher in the school, and it's for the housewife and the mother who is frazzled after a sleepless night. Torah is for everybody. And until you can see that, said the Baskol, said the Rebbeinu Shalom, then you have to stay inside the cave. You're going to destroy my world. Torah is to build. Torah is to gather together. Torah is to unite us as one. A person who uses his Torah to drive people away doesn't understand what the Torah really is all about. We should be Zeichim Yetz Hashem as the fiery day of Lag BaOmer is coming upon us tomorrow night. Wherever you might be, by a bonfire, maybe you'll just enjoy the live stream to Meron, where this year, Baruch Hashem, there will be hundreds of thousands of Yidden coming together as one. Hashem should protect all of them from COVID virus and anyone getting sick. He should make it the glorious celebration that it has been for the last several hundred years. Continue to make it that way. Last year, there was barely a minyan at Meron because the world was in lockdown. This year, they've already begun the pilgrimage, and they're traveling by the busloads to be able to be there. It will be fascinating just to see it, but you'll see what we are missing. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, as the Jewish people continue to bind themselves together with achdus, with unity, For that, in fact, is what the Torah is all about. Like Hillel told to the prospective convert, "Madesani loch al savid lechavercha." Whatever is hateful to you, do not do unto your friend. Which means, "Ve'afta l'recha kamoicha," love your fellow Jew the way that you love yourself. That is what the Torah is all about. And Be'ez Hashem, and that zechus and that merit. As Klal Yisrael spent 49 days in the wilderness, counting up with great excitement and anticipation, waiting for the Torah to be given, we should be zeich ourselves to Shah Kodesh Baruch Hu, our excitement, our anticipation, our yearning, and our waiting to receive the greatest gift of all time, the Torah Kedosha. As it was given then, so should it be given now. As Klal Yisrael dedicated themselves to Tavdin Elokim Ala Hazeh, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu on that mountain, may we be zeiche to restore and be returned to the Mount Hashem, Nahar Hashem, the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, Bimheira V'Yameinu.